beautiful humans. I'm Rise EX, and welcome to another riveting episode of Mid-Byte Hour with Dave Ace and Zach Pack. And so, I feel like I'm on trial today because we're talking about, I think we're basically talking about my child today. We're talking about Sonic Adventure 2, which is a game I hold very near and dear to my heart. And so, we've have been kind of going through some Sonic stuff in this podcast so far. We did an episode on Sonic Adventure maybe a month or so ago, and that definitely brought up a lot of interesting points. And also, just because of the nature of some of the games that we play, we've delved into a lot of Sonic black holes throughout the duration of our podcast thus far. So, we thought we'd just give, what the people want, and we'll continue our adventure triade. And this is really fun because the first time around, Zach didn't play Sonic Adventure, so it was really fun getting his perspective on adventure and stuff. And for me, I didn't really care what Zach thought about Sonic Adventure because it's like it's a game that exists, it's a game that I understand the importance of, but it's not a game that I have continued to love throughout my years. It's just a game that I am happy that it's there, but I'm also like, it has its flaws. Now we're moving on to Adventure 2, though, and Adventure 2 is literally my baby, so I will fight and care for it as much as I can in this podcast. I know Dave is a mortal enemy of this game, so I have to make sure I shield the game from him, but depending on where Zach's coming from, it may be a very bloody fight, so just so y'all know. Dave, you have any thoughts before we get going?
Well, I mean, everything you just said, I can say the same about Adventure, Adventure 2, I appreciate what it's there for, but it has its flaws, as you said. So, yeah, we'll let Zach take it away since it's his first time playing through the game. I'm very excited to hear his takes.
I'm prepared. I brought the energy.
I am actually really excited. I've been looking forward to this since we recorded the Adventure episode.
Well, Zach, before we get into it, I'm very curious because I know that you're not a huge Sonic fan, but you've probably heard of some of these games. So what was your impression of Adventure 2 before you even touched it? Like, what were your thoughts on the game?
I mean, I heard a lot of great things about it. Obviously both Sonic Adventure games, I've just always heard endless praise for both of them. Regardless of their flaws, I've always heard that they're both the pinnacle of Sonic games. And then when I played the first game, when I played Sonic Adventure 1, my expectations were then leveled and be like, okay, I can expect I can go into this expecting to play not a great game, but a good game that has good qualities, but it has its ups and downs. So that was my first, that's what I went into this game thinking. That was my mindset.
All right. So I'm very curious then. How far did you get in the game?
I completed the hero story,
okay,
or the good guy story, and I got about halfway through the dark evil story, whatever it's called.
Wow, well, you actually got through quite a bit of it.
Yeah, I did. I've played it for the past few weeks. I gave myself a few weeks.
Do you remember the last level that you were on before you stopped the dark story?
I don't. It was with freaking Rouge the Bat.
Oh boy!
Is it the prison one? Is it the prison one?
I don't. It might have been. I don't remember because I'm gonna rant about Rouge the Bat and Knuckles
later.
It's
either the prison one or the one that takes place in space. Because the one that takes place in space
it's probably the prison one if it's halfway. But then again, I don't know how you would know what's halfway since you never played it.
Yeah, I guess because there's a decent amount,
Yeah, because it's interesting because they both sort of operate at different paces. Both the hero and dark storyline. Because the dark storyline, you get a lot more of the build-up, more of the background information, what's going on in the actual game. While in the hero storyline, you just jump straight into the heat of the conflict. You literally start with Sonic being captured by the government agency, and breaking out of it.
Yeah, it really threw me off. I was like, oh, like, cause I just came off of like, the last game, or at least I didn't go like all the way in Sonic Adventure 1. But like my first thought, like in the opening cutscene, is like, why is Sonic like being held captive by the government? Like, what happened? Like, he's escaped. The hedgehog's escaped. And it's like he's jumping out of a helicopter. I'm like, how did this happen?
That's because everyone in that game is colorblind. So. But yeah, so we're gonna kind of talk about Zach's first impressions of Adventure 2. So it sounds like it was an interesting way to start off the game in your eyes, which I would agree. A very iconic way to open a Sonic game, I must say. I mean, City Escape, the rest is history. It's one of the most iconic first levels of all Sonic games. From that riveting guitar riff, seeing Sonic skate down the streets and stuff, screaming Yahoo when he's like off the ramps, like I'm getting all choked up just thinking about it. It's fantastic opening to a game. Oh, the truck scene at the end of the level. Oh my, let me stop. What did you think, Zach?
Thank you, Crash Bandicoot.
What I think, I will admit, that was a pretty great level. It was a pretty great opening level. It was a great way, because I mean, spoiler alert, kind of. Some, like, I liked the Sonic sections, playing as Sonic and I guess Shadow as well. Like, I liked those sections because it was just fun, fast gameplay. And like I mentioned in the first Sonic Adventure episode, I'm not good at Sonic games. Like, I'm not good with the going fast stuff. Like, I always fly off edges and all that. But that first level, it did feel like a good introduction. Like, I felt like I was doing the whole Sonic thing of going fast, but I was actually, it felt like really polished, that first level, I will say. So I thought it was a lot of fun.
How would you compare the Sonic levels in this game compared to the first one?
The Sonic levels, specifically the running levels, I think were done better in this game.
Ooh, okay. Dave, what do you think about that?
There you go.
I mean, it's like saying, it's like looking at Crash Bandicoot and Crash Bandicoot 2. Sonic Adventure was his first instance of making levels in that form. You can't really... I mean, it was an improvement, sure.
Let's see.
But I will say, I don't really like them as much.
So let's dive into that then. Why don't you like them as much?
They're not as open. They're not as open-ended as they are in Adventure. Like, sure, you get to later levels and they are, but like in Sonic Adventure, when you're playing through Sonic's levels, it's like, for example, Casinopolis or Casinopolis, however you want to pronounce it, you're in like the main area of a casino. You can just walk around, run around it, and just explore. You can explore it. And then when you go to Adventure 2, like City Escape and all the others, it's just like, okay, point A to point B. There are some areas that you can explore, but not to the greatest extent like you could back in Adventure.
I can definitely see that, and that's definitely the biggest difference for me between this game and the first one, is that the levels in the first Adventure definitely felt more open. It also felt like Sonic's control scheme was a little bit more chaotic in the first game. Like, you were able to, like... First of all, this game kind of, like, nerfs the spin dash in Adventure 2. Like, you have to hold it and then release it for the spin dash to, like, go. Which, I'll be honest, when I was a kid, I actually didn't love that. And I can kind of go either way as now as a grown-up, because it does kind of limit how fast you can go, but it also kind of makes you strategically think when it's best to use it. So I kind of see both sides of it.
Actually, I do want to ask, because this is interesting. Again, don't quote me on this because this is an interesting fact that I might share. But I do want to ask Zach, in Adventure 2, did you feel like you were going slower as Sonic in Adventure 2 at any point? Like, did it feel like his max speed wasn't as fast as it was in Adventure?
Here's the thing. I honestly never really went max speed because, like I said, I was just horrible at controlling Sonic. Mm-hmm. I will say, in Adventure 2, I felt like I was able to control him more. Like, I felt like things felt a little more precise, and I don't know if that has to do with the fact that he's a little slower. Maybe that is the case. I did have a little bit of trouble, actually, with the homing attack, though. When in regards to, like, Like sometimes I'd be going too slow and I would like not quite make it. So I had that issue. So I don't know if that relates to Sonic speed. I don't know. I don't know the physics of the speedy blue hedgehog.
Well, actually,
but,
something that's very interesting that I learned over the past few years. Again, if anybody knows more about this, please feel free to correct me down below in the comments. But just from doing, like, being voice calls and whatnot with people, Sonic's the same speed that he is in Adventure 2 as he is in Adventure. The reason he seems slower is because they slowed down his animations. Huh. It creates the illusion that he's slower. He's the same speed as he is in Adventure. And someone showed this off to me in like a gameplay engine, and they were like, see, I could just change the speed of the animations, and it looks just like it is how it is in Adventure. And I was like, what? So
That's
again,
crazy.
if anybody's like heavily more informed about that, feel free to comment down below. But that's what I heard over the past few years. Yeah, Sonic is the exact same speed that he is in an Adventure. They just slowed the animations down.
Wow, that is crazy. Because I would have definitely swore that he was slower in Adventure 2. Yeah, that's fascinating. I just can't picture it. It does not feel like that's the truth.
It's crazy how much slower an animation of something can
It might also
actually
have to do with
change the way something
angles.
that feels. Yeah,
Because I do feel like Adventure 2 took what they thought worked in Adventure and just gave more of that, basically. So they basically allowed less room for chaos, which, could be a good or bad thing. I personally think that it allowed for more refined, like, Adventure Sonic gameplay. So that's why I'll give a slight edge to Adventure 2's Sonic levels, but I will say the Adventure levels in the first game, the Sonic levels in the first game are still pretty good. So I think they're both great, honestly. But I think Adventure 2 just limits like the chaos, so it kind of gives you a more like precise pathway to follow. But I mean, gives a lot more of that good, exciting stuff, like the truck.
I mean,
chase,
there
for
certainly
instance.
is a reason behind that, but I'll touch more back on that later on in the discussion.
So we're moving forward in the hero story, and you encountered that boss fight, and then did you have any comments on the boss fights or anything like that in the game?
Not really. I mean, they felt just like this isn't meant to be an insult. They felt standard. Like they felt like, like there wasn't anything super crazy to them. I remember I had trouble doing and I'm assuming, are you talking about the first one, like with Shadow?
Yeah, sure, why not?
Okay,
It could be any of them. It could be any of them. It's not.
I was just kind of
sometimes,
like boss fights, whatever.
Yeah, like sometimes, like they weren't that hard. Like sometimes, like, and this is with all of them, it takes me a second to really think of what I'm actually supposed to do and what the right way to go about the boss fight is. But that's just my own stupidity. But I mean, none of them really, honestly, stumped me for like that long, from what I remember. Because I started playing this game also like a few weeks ago now, so like the early levels are starting to fade a little bit, but none of them really stumped me too much.
So nothing like Egg Viper, I guess, is what we're trying to say.
No, that sucked.
That's kind of the theme of the game that we're already starting to see, is that things seem a lot more like streamlined.
Okay.
Yeah, well,
all right. I did want to ask. Speaking of Egg Viper, how'd you feel about fighting Tails? The what was it? Does he fight Eggman the second 2 times throughout the story?
So, I guess we should get into the character battles, because that's like half the bosses in this game. So allows me to fight like Shadow, Rooch, and Eggman. What did you think about those? Because in the first game they were interesting.
They were very much basic.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like my. Okay, this is gonna kind of go into where I start having issues with the game, and this is where I start some not great stuff. And this goes beyond the boss fights as well. This goes into the levels.
Feel free to whatever. I mean, it's your first impressions.
things started to not blend, but a lot of things felt like it felt not repetitive, but it's like things started to get like really blurry for me because it's like I feel like I'm doing like really the same tasks a lot of the time. Like it's so weird because it's so different than my complaints about the first game. The first game I was like, it's all this weird different shit, like you're fishing with fucking Big the Cat. But here it's like Knuckles, fuck that echidna. I don't want to search for another Chaos Emerald piece wherever the frick it's buried. And it's like I have to do that 5 times, and then figuring out you do the same thing with Rouge, and then like it's like, okay, so Eggman is Tails, Rouge is Knuckles, and then Shadow is Sonic. It's like, okay, so I'm basically doing the same stuff in the Dark Side battle as well. So it's like that with all the character bosses that like some of them don't feel too different. It's like it all starts to kind of blend in my head, and it's Sorry, I actually got really frustrated there.
No, it's all good.
I got taken back there. Literally, a couple weeks ago, I was doing what level was it? It was with Knuckles. It was like the Nightmare Before Christmas ripoff of Halloween Town.
Oh,
and,
that
Ghost Town or Pumpkin Hill.
That place sucked. I could not figure. I got one of the pieces, and then I was flying around. I was like, where are the other two? And then I got to the fucking train. I couldn't figure out how to move the train in the way I wanted to, so I gave up for the night. I was like, no, I'm not. No.
Oh my god.
That's so funny because I feel like Pumpkin Hill is everyone's favorite Knuckles level.
I hate it.
Actually, it's definitely like one of my least favorites personally. I think
I
Death
hate it.
Well, I mean,
Chamber
I feel
kinda
like
takes it.
all of the treasure hunting stages in Adventure 2, even though they tried to refine it from Adventure, they definitely made it much worse.
I would disagree
Garbage.
with that personally.
No,
they're
like
garbage.
okay, it's so I don't know.
I understand though. Like you have to kind of like be open to the gameplay mechanic in general, and
I feel
you know,
like-
that's
I
the
feel
thing
like-
about Sonic. Go ahead.
Personally, I just feel like if they were to have refined it in any kind of way, they should have just let you figure out which piece you wanted to search for first,
Yeah,
rather
for
than
sure.
locking the pieces
sure.
behind that. Like, I get why they
Oh.
did that.
Wait, you have to get them in a certain order?
Yeah,
you didn't
so
realize?
they give you a radar.
Oh, I didn't even realize
they
that.
Give you, no. They give you a radar for one of them, and then when you find that one, then it opens up the second radar. And
Oh,
then,
I mean-
yeah.
I never realized that. I thought it was just because like I would just fly around aimlessly and eventually I'd find one. I'm like, okay, I found one. So the
No,
first thing
there's
is
a
blinking.
radar at the bottom of the screen.
Well, no,
Oh
no,
my
well, no,
God.
yeah, I know that. I just didn't know. So like, there's like the 3 pieces. Let's
Yeah,
say,
yeah.
and, like, goes from
Yeah.
left to right. I didn't know that. Like when the first one, I thought it was just counting down. I didn't know that was a
No,
specific one.
yeah, that was a
No.
specific.
Oh.
I mean, you can collect them in any order that you want, but they lock the radar so you collect them in that specific order.
Yeah.
Well, why the fuck would they do that?
Yeah, that was a huge L.
I don't know.
I will say.
Maybe they
That was
thought it
a-
would be more challenging.
You know how
It
much
certainly
frustration
was.
I got from that?
Oh my god. All right, so I have a weirdly weird way of thinking about the treasure hunting levels because this was kind of like the mechanic in the game that maybe actually confused how much I actually liked Adventure 2 because when I was a kid, I actually did not like how they changed levels in this game at all compared to the first. I thought the treasure hunting levels were worse as well. And so I think when I first played Pumpkin Hill, that level in particular, I think I took 20 minutes on it. And I felt so embarrassed when I was a kid because I'm like, I've never taken 20 minutes on a Sonic level before. That was
You did better than me.
that was like so heartbreaking to me. But here's the thing: is that I guess we'll talk a little bit more about the other gameplay styles in a little bit. But I think when it comes to like the Sonic levels and like the Tails-ish levels, they both have like a similar goal, which is to get to the end. I mean, like with the mech levels, you're trying to chain up combos and stuff along the way, but you can still kind of have a sense of speed while doing it, while getting to the end. It still kind of sticks a little bit closer to like what a Sonic game like in general is. The treasure hunting levels do not stick to that at all. It's pretty much almost a different genre of games. They're both platformers, I guess, but it definitely harkens more on that like collectathon like mentality. And no, they were never going to get everyone to love those treasure hunting levels because it just contrasts so much compared to like what the rest of the game is trying to do. And so to have that like drastic shift of like, oh, you're Sonic 1 minute, but now you gotta like run around in circles looking for these emerald pieces as Knuckles. A lot of people were not really into that. At least at Adventure, you can choose like your own character and kind of just like, okay, this may not be my favorite part of the game, but I am ready to go in and just finish off these treasure hunting levels. You know, you at least kind of prepare yourself for that. In Adventure 2, there's very little room to kind of like choose what you want to do. So you're pretty much dressed from like one spot to the other. So I feel like unless you're like open to varying things up like that, like in one sitting, like it's going to be very hard to sell people on those treasure hunting levels. But I honestly think from like a design standpoint, like there's a lot of things about the treasure hunting levels in Adventure 2 that are a lot better. Like they may be like, they were fun in the first game, but they also tended to be like really short and really basic and really simple. And it's just kind of like, well, people that don't like treasure hunting levels will prefer those because they're a lot less involved. So you can kind of just like go in and just finish them in under 2 minutes, you know, find Tikal, have her lead you to the emerald piece and you're done. So people that don't like these levels in general are going to prefer how they were in the first game because they're more simple and more simplistic and easier to do. But in this game, they're definitely a lot more challenging. The environments are bigger, and it's not just a matter of like going to the location that the radar is like blinking the most and finding it. Like there's like this aquatic level in the Hero Surf, for instance, where you have to go do these like different caves and stuff to get to emerald pieces. So it's not as simple as that. And then you get to like the last space levels where gravity like messes everything up and stuff. So they add a lot of different challenges in these levels. So I feel like they should definitely get some props for like trying to mix it up and just trying to make them more fleshed out levels. I just think that they were fighting a losing battle because treasure hunting levels just do not match like the overall like feel of a Sonic game. And you can argue the mech levels don't either, but at least they still kind of maintain that get to the goal ring quickly like mentality. So that's kind of like my overall opinion. It's like, I can understand why people prefer the ones in the first game, but I felt like when I kind of opened myself up more to like just doing a treasure hunting level, I actually did enjoy like controlling Knuckles and Rouge and like gliding everywhere and finding emerald pieces. They're really well designed characters like mechanic wise, and some environments can be really fun to like explore and such. So I don't know. That's just me.
Yeah, I think the one thing I would change, like, cause like I feel like the main issue that I have with those scavenger hunt segments, and I think the one thing they could have done to make them like more appealing to me and to make me like them a little bit more, and maybe it's like me wanting to simplify it or like oversimplify it. I don't know how people would think of it, like as them dumbing the game down, but like almost do like what they do with like Crazy Taxi, where they have like the arrow kind of pointing you in the direction, like tell you which general direction the thing is in, and give you obstacles that you still have to go through. So it's like, you know, it's not like it's just telling you, oh, it's over there. No, you still have to go through obstacles. You still have to do the puzzles that you have to do. It's just giving you a general direction of like, okay, this is where you have to go, get there, and then once you get that emerald piece, you'll go on to the next one. And, you know, like I think that just would have been, at least to me, it would have made it less tedious, just me flying around, crawling up walls, looking around, not knowing where to go.
Rats.
And because I kid you not. You said 20 minutes was embarrassing. I you know, about that. Yeah, like I said, I rage quit the Halloween Town level, whatever the fuck it's called, Pumpkin Hill. I did that. I was on there thing for 30 minutes. Then I rage quit, and then I did like the next. I YouTubed I got a YouTube like, you know, like it's like, you know.
I will say I prefer like the more open environments when it comes to these levels because at least you can kind of like just fly around everywhere, and then the radar will usually sound, although I gotta say the radar system in this game is terrible. It definitely, the first one did a much better job of the radar system. I see Dave smirking over there, but
I mean, what? It's not real.
You gotta give the game,
I'm not wrong.
You gotta give the first game its props in some areas, and that was definitely one thing they should not have touched. But I will say I just think that the levels are more interesting in this game.
I mean, they are definitely more interestingly designed because they gave Knuckles his own set of themed levels rather than just being like, oh, this is where Sonic was, or this is where Tails was.
Yeah.
And Tails was more like, you know, his because in the original, or in the first Sonic adventure, he was basically Sonic, but could fly. Here, he had his own freaking mech, and being completely honest, Tails' sections were my favorite. I really, because of the fact that I like a little bit of that slower gameplay, you know, I don't really care about going fast, and because it is still going from point A to point B, I really enjoyed Tails' levels for that. They were fun. Nothing was overly complicated. It was just running and shooting, and there's some light puzzling in there, and I genuinely enjoyed Tails' levels.
Wow, I was not expecting that actually.
Yeah.
But now that
Is that a good time?
now that you put it that way, though, it makes sense why you would like Tails' levels the most.
Yeah, they were fun.
It seems like the most Nintendo-ish gameplay style here. I feel like.
Well, I mean, they knew that people liked the
Maybe
gameplay
not.
of Gamma. They knew that people liked the gameplay of Gamma from the first game, and they wanted to incorporate it again. And since Gamma's technically dead, they just passed it off to, you know, the character that would fit more with it.
Oh, it does, yeah.
I don't know if I'm just speaking out of my ass here, but wasn't there like some point in development where it was just gonna be like 3 playable characters, like Sonic, Eggman, and maybe Knuckles or something, and then they decided to go with the whole hero versus dark thing, and that's why they gave Tails the mech, because that's how they structured the game. Or am I just like talking about?
I mean, you might not be far off. This game, like in early development, went through a lot of stuff. Like I think at even one point, they said that they were gonna do Gamma again or something similar to Gamma, but then they decided not to because it wouldn't make sense. But yeah, I do think it was a limited amount of characters at the start, and then they decided to go with the hero versus dark kind of concept. Not sure if it was specifically Sonic, Eggman, and Knuckles, or just Sonic, Tails, and Eggman.
I think Eggman.
I mean, it very much might be Sonic, Knuckles, and Eggman, just because, again, they wanted to incorporate all of the gameplay styles that people found appealing in the first adventure into the second adventure.
Yeah.
But where was the fishing?
There was no fishing because people didn't
Dead
like
in a
fishing.
ditch. To where it belongs.
It did not do what Sega wanted it to do.
Although I'm pretty sure you did not catch this, Zach, but Big is in Adventure 2.
He is. He's hidden throughout the levels.
So he's kind of like
Oh yeah, no.
he's like a fun little, like, if you go searching through the levels, you can find Big at like the most random spots in these levels.
Okay, no, I never
Should look up like a YouTube
There's
video.
like, it's hilarious. Like City Escape, if you're running from the truck, you can see him in the background just running with you as the truck's coming. While you're fighting Shadow in the first time on Green Forest or whatever it's called, you can see him in like the drain pipe that's there. He's like sitting up under the drain pipe, and then sometimes before bosses start, he'll drop down below or he'll be sitting somewhere. It is pretty funny.
I love
it's
Big
pretty
the
funny.
Cat. I wish I noticed that. I wish I paid attention to that.
I'll be
It's very
honest.
hard.
If he was there, I
it's
never
very
noticed.
hard to see. Very hard to see. But once you see it the first time, you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I did not know about this at all until I actually got a computer and was able to look online and watch and read what other people were saying. And people were saying, "Oh, did you catch Big the Cat in this level?" I was like, "What? That's a thing? I didn't realize that." So
He's still out there fishing with Froggy.
yeah, in the background where he belongs.
He was actually supposed to be a multiplayer character as well.
I wonder what gameplay style would have best fit in.
I think they said that he was going to be like, sort of like, I think they said he was going to be in like a mech.
That would have made sense. Like a frog.
I think
mech.
I don't know. I'll have to do more research again. Anybody that knows this, I think he is playable, but I don't know. I don't know. I've read
Wait.
so many places that like he is playable in the multiplayer version of the Dreamcast version of Sonic Adventure 2. I don't know. Maybe it's like a kart thing. Maybe he's like playable in the racing mode. I don't know.
Interesting.
You lost me.
I did not know this was a thing, and I'm supposed to be the fanatic. So
I'll have to do.
who
I'll have to
knows?
do more research on that.
Well, Zach, did you have any levels that you thought were particular highlights while you were playing it?
I mean, as cliche as it's gonna sound, the City Escape was probably my favorite one. I mean, like it really was a solid intro. But besides that, Oh, there was one level with shoot. It was in the hero stories, like towards the end. It was shit.
Was it Tails?
Yeah. Was it Tails?
He has like one.
Like I said, it's yeah. He has like one level. It's like
It's got a lot of shooting in that level in particular. Like there are enemies.
Is it
galore.
on the Space Colony arc?
yes, yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's like his final level.
Yeah, that's his
What-
final level.
What is it called? Eternal Engine or something like that?
Something. Yeah, it's Eternal Engine. It's the level
First
before
of
you
all-
fight Eggman.
Oh my God! I was gonna mention
think-
this like in the very beginning of the podcast because I wanted us to like pay our respects to this immediately. But when you boot up the intro, when you boot up the game, you had the start screen, and that amazing iconic theme song plays. Live and learn. I mean, end of story right there.
Did that play at the Crush 40 concert by chance?
Yeah, it
that we
did.
were at.
It was
did.
the last song.
Yeah.
I remember everyone was like really really wanted to hear that one. I remember that was a really big one that everyone was like,
Yeah.
"Come on, do it."
and learn.
Oh my God, that is this. If there's one thing about this game that I will defend to the day I die, it's soundtrack. I love the soundtrack.
Well, every
so much.
Sonic game seems to have a banger soundtrack for some reason.
Definitely
this-
Sonic Chronicles Dark Brotherhood. Best soundtrack ever.
I can't remember a
Can't
single
tell if
song
that's
out of that game.
sarcasm.
I can't remember a single song from that
Guessing
game.
that's sarcasm then. Okay.
Oh my
It's
God!
all
Actually,
just horrible MIDI recreations of Sonic
okay,
songs.
I honestly cannot think what that game sounds like at all.
It sounds like someone put a Sega Genesis in a deep fryer and just let it rip.
I remember the Sonic X like art that they used for the dialogue though, and how like Amy's had like these white little spots around her. I was like, you guys used paint to do this, didn't you?
More than likely.
But anyway, I think like Adventure 2's soundtrack is a little unique in the whole like game like library of Sonic though, is because I think most Sonic soundtracks are pretty diverse. So you get a lot of different sounds, especially in Adventure 1. Like you got a lot of like rock music, got a lot of like techno music, you got like some jazz music in particular. Like there's a lot of stuff in Adventure 1 like, in that way. But I feel like Adventure 2 was a lot more focused. It was a lot more rock like feeling, and it has like more like, well, except the treasure hunting levels, they're a little more hip hop.
I was gonna say there's some rap in there that I was really
So,
like, hold on,
I was
they
like,
spitting bars here, like.
in the relative scheme of things, I feel like it was a more
Like that really threw me off. That you just reminded me of that. I think I remember as soon as I booted up the first treasure hunting level, I was listening to the music. I was like,
that really is like the one like exception in this game. Like everything else, I feel like feels pretty concise, except Knuckles' levels. But
I'll say
Well,
the
the
soundtrack
raps-
was really good in this game.
The raps are supposed to be intertwined with what's happening in the story.
Yeah. But it was still weird.
It is very
it's like one of
weird.
the
It
things
is
that
very
just throws
weird.
you off. It's
But
like,
I mean,
oh.
it is very much, I guess, in the faith of Knuckles' theme of the first game.
yeah,
It fits his character. It's very early 2000s.
Yeah, I will say, to kind of bring back the debate, I will say, because the soundtrack in this game was good, but I will give the point to Sonic Adventure 1 for the
What?
soundtrack. I will give the point to
That's
Sonic
actually
Adventure
really interesting because
I
know
here's
a
the
lot of
thing.
people like Adventure 2 because a lot more emotion, from what I
Yeah.
can tell, is put into the character themes.
I feel like, okay, Sonic Adventure 2's soundtrack is really good in the fact that, the music is very good to listen to. I just think the first game's music is a little more catchy, in my opinion. Like, I found it stuck in my head more than the music from 2. So, like, I mean, I guess it's subjective then about, like, being better. Like, is it the ones that are cooler to just listen to, or the ones that get stuck in your head? Like, which is better? That's subjective. But, being that sometimes I still get Station Square stuck in my head, like, I feel like that just is a staple of, okay, that's a really good soundtrack. Even a month after I've played it, I'm still singing the soundtrack in my head.
and okay, this is the point I was like actually trying to make. And so, I feel like both games had like they're both very good soundtracks, but they both have different like philosophies and how they curate a soundtrack. So I feel like in Adventure, every level had its own focused like vision for what this song was supposed to sound like. So it's like Emerald Coast has this very like happy, like go lucky, like relaxed feel to it, and then you have like Speed Highway, which is like, you know, fast paced rock, and then like at the end a little bit more like slow pace to kind of bring in the dawn, and then you have Red Mountain, which is a lot more jazzy compared to a lot of songs in the rest of the game. But with like Sonic Adventure 2, it's much more dependent on the character. So all of Sonic's songs are very like that Crush 40 like rock sound, which I love and adore. Like that's just my bread and butter when it comes to Sonic games. Tails is actually not that far off from Sonic. Like his songs are kind of like done in a similar style, but maybe just a little slower tempo compared to Sonic's. And then Knuckles.
Yeah, and
course.
he doesn't have any vocals for his.
Oh yeah. And then like Shadow is also very fast paced, but his is a lot more electro. Like it's got more of a mysterious vibe to it. Especially like White Jungle in particular and Final Chase. Like those are songs that really ring true to that. Eggman kind of still has a rock sound, but it sounds more devilish. I don't know. I don't know how to describe it. It just sounds more like
techno.
conniving. Yeah, that's kind of a general characteristic of the Dark Stories like soundtrack. It's a little more techno. Then Rouge has a more jazzy like feel to her songs overall. Like a lot.
I will
like,
say
use of
hers are
trumpets.
probably the most catchiest, though.
Yeah. So I feel like Adventure 2 has less songs that stand out because they're kind of made more according to the character. But I kind of just love that because it helps build like the stories of the characters. But I also love Adventure 1 soundtrack because it helps build the story of like the environment and seeing all these different characters like go to their environments. And so they both had different ideas, but I think both were executed well. I think it's silly to choose one over the other. If I had to, just based off of taste, I just think Adventure 2 has more stuff within my taste that I like more. But I do appreciate like the different design philosophies of both.
Yeah. I don't really have
Yeah.
anything much to say about the music. I like the music. It's pretty decent. They did a good job with styling it after the certain characters, being more specific, character centered. Yeah.
Was there anything about so I know you don't like the treasure hunting level, Zach. I think that's pretty clear.
Yeah.
What about the other two
Well,
gameplay styles? Was there anything you
Yeah,
didn't
well,
like
we know
about them?
we know the reason why like the Tails one so much because it's more slow paced, more, you have, I guess you're kind of technically on a timer, but you still have enough time to figure out what you're trying to do, whereas with the other two it's just like, okay, what do I do? More specifically with Knuckles, but Sonic's like go 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 go.
Yeah, I mean, so the other thing is like, because yes, obviously I really did like the Tails levels, and I really didn't like the treasure hunting levels. The Sonic levels, I just think are just fun. Like they're just Sonic levels. Like I said earlier, they are done better in this game than Adventure 1, but they still very much feel like Sonic levels. Like feels very much the same. So it's like it's still that classic fast Sonic. It's for someone like me, I don't get to appreciate it as much just because I'm horrible at playing it. So, but I do appreciate the design, and I know you said they were a little more linear earlier. I'll be honest, I didn't even really notice, particularly with the running levels, because obviously Casinopolis or whatever it's called from the first game obviously is more open-ended. You get to choose what room you want to go to, what games you want to play. You explore the casino. Here it's like start to finish, and I feel like a lot of levels, even in the first Sonic Adventure, did have that like Emerald Coast. I think you said it was called the beachy kind of level. Like that's very start to finish. Like so, Sonic Adventure 2, like I feel like borrows a lot of that as well. And I do like them. They're good.
Let's see. Oh, well, let's think about like favorite levels. Actually, I'm trying to think what like my favorite level would be. I think of the speed levels. Oh, City Escape is a tough one to beat. That's a really big one. But I actually really like I really like Pyramid Cave for some reason.
Pyramid Cave, that's what I was gonna say. Pyramid Cave is just, I think if I were to say any level in that game represents Sonic the most, it's Pyramid Cave.
I love running down like those corridors and like trying your hand at like getting through those hoops and stuff. I think that's just such a fun way of utilizing Sonic's skill set. It kind of is like you're going fast, but you're also being tested on how well you control Sonic going that fast. And I think that's like a really fun way of doing it. On a good day when I'm like good at the game, I love Crazy Gadget.
Oh, I love Crazy Gadget. I know people hate that stage, but I love the vibe of it, and just like the hear Eggman mocking Sonic over the intercoms as you're going through the stage. It's just like, oh yeah.
And that was like, me being a 10-year-old kid playing through that. It really brought up the stakes for me. And that's just something I love about this game, and we'll definitely get more into that. Like the overall narrative of the game is that a lot of things they did in these levels were to drive the narrative, and that was one of them. And I mean, as a kid, I just thought that was the most epic thing ever. You have this like really epic guitar riff playing. I just can't get enough of the guitar in this game. Like the guitar is amazing, but the really epic guitar riff, Crazy Gadget, exactly. Keep him away from the technos and the synthesizers, but give him all the guitars in the world.
No, that's not who you gotta keep. That's Otani. You need to keep Otani away from the synthesizers and all that.
Didn't he do most of the stuff in who did most of the stuff in Superstars?
June did some of the stuff in Superstars, but I'm wondering if that's more so was his decision or it was a Sega of Japan decision.
I don't know. I was just like I did a video recently talking about that game, and when I did that thing, I realized I couldn't remember a single song from that game, which
I mean it's fair. It's fair.
Which was very like.
I think a lot of the
me.
songs in that game are pretty much a bop, but
yeah, I know.
We're not talking about Superstars. We're talking about Adventure 2.
Yeah. Oh, but I do gotta give flowers to Final Rush though. I mean, that level did anger me a lot as a kid because I'd always try to do like the most outrageous shortcuts while playing that level. So I would like launch off of the rail, and then I would try to like drop Sonic all the way over here to land on this really tiny rail on this section, and then I would just miss it by like a little bit. And
the rails, honestly, like I actually had trouble with the rails sometimes. It's almost like I say with Sonic, like anything that requires like a lot of precision.
Yeah.
Like I'm just horrible at like landing on the rails, or sometimes like homing attacking on whatever enemy I'm aiming for. Like sometimes that's really really hard, and I always feel like I'm a bad player for not being able to do it. So I'm glad to get a little bit of validation.
I will say there is a few different flaws when it comes to Sonic's gameplay here. And just so you know, I'm bunching Shadow with Sonic too, just so you know.
Yeah.
But like one thing that's exclusive to Sonic though, that Shadow doesn't have, is the fact that Sonic has the light dash and the bounce attack on the same button. So sometimes when you try to light dash in the air, you actually bounce to your doom.
Yeah, that can happen. Because he doesn't get the bounce at all.
Yeah. And so I was like, y'all really couldn't have just mapped out to a different button. And
actually, Shadow has less levels than Sonic.
So overall, like this game is very evenly divided for the most part. So technically, each like type of character has the same amount of levels. But then I realized like Tails has like a kart racing level, and Rouge has a kart racing level. So technically, the Sonic levels still take the majority just by an inch. But it's a lot more equalized here compared to Adventure 1, which I have mixed feelings about. I'm just like just give me like a game full of Sonic levels. Like, come on, is that so hard to do?
But what are you talking about? Every game aside after Heroes at least, or 06 was nothing but Sonic levels.
But like, it's not the Sonic levels I want.
I know it's not the Sonic levels that you want, but it was Sonic levels.
Why do we have like 10? And even with like the Boost games, there's only like 1 or 2 Sonic games that like have exclusively Boost levels, like colors.
That's the formula that they decided to go with. It's
Generations. At least Generations like had 2 different gameplay styles.
And that's what angers me.
Sonic.
That's what angers me, because Generations shows that they can do a good Boost formula game. It shows that that was supposed to be a game that they could have just taken from and built off of to make the next Sonic game. But what did we get? We got Sonic Lost World. We didn't get another Sonic Generations type game. We got Sonic Lost World.
Well, that game does have only one gameplay style, so there you go.
Yeah, a gameplay
I will give the game
that sucks.
It has
Who in their right mind looks at Sonic and goes, "Yeah, let's give him a run button. Let's give him a run button."
That was such a weird design choice by far. But anyway, back to the matters at hand. Well, Zach, did you find anything that you disliked about the Tails levels or the Eggman levels? And you mentioned the Tails levels a lot, but did you see the Eggman levels in the same way, or did you feel like there was a difference in them compared to Tails?
They were kind of like they all. I mean, like minor, like because there are obviously minor differences between like the hero and villain side of things, but I kind of view them all kind of in the same light.
Yeah.
Like, Knuckles and Root. Besides, obviously, like any like there are small differences, of course, but I not really. I don't really think of them any differently. But the one thing I guess I didn't like about the Tails levels, I guess besides his last one, is they did kind of feel easy, like really easy.
Okay.
And I guess I kind of also liked it because it was just so casual. It was just like, I was sitting, I was enjoying myself while doing it. So it's not like easy and like, this is baby games kind of easy. But like, yeah, I guess I would make it a little harder. But then I did die a couple times, so I can't say it's too easy. But
The key is to go for the A rank. That's when you'll start throwing your control on the
yeah,
floor.
I started giving no fucks about the A rank. I never got I got E's. I'm like, no, I'm not even gonna bother trying. Like,
That's the thing. Adventure 2 becomes such a different game when you're trying to get those A ranks.
Yeah. I'm not one of those games. Like in any
Don't
game,
worry,
I'm
don't
not one
worry.
of those ones.
You're not really missing out on much.
Like, imagine trying to get the A ranks in your first run, the treasure hunting levels. Like, it's just a recipe for failure.
Yeah.
Oh God, no! Yeah,
I mean, well, see, the thing about that is, as much as I, hate the treasure hunting levels, each level has a pattern to it. And this is how speedrunners speedrun the game. When they find the place of one emerald, they already know where the next one's gonna be based off of the pattern that's given to them. I think there's like 3 or 4 different patterns that you can spawn into the level with, and as just basing it off of that pattern alone will guide you to the others, because that's how because if you ever replay an emerald stage or a treasure hunting stage, you'll notice that the emeralds are in a different location than they usually are, and that's because it's based on a different pattern to give you more replayability when you're going back into the level.
That does not seem like an intended feature to me, though. That just seems like something that speedrunners found, just based off the way they designed
No,
the game.
I mean, definitely not an intended feature for speedrunners, but that's how they discovered that levels have patterns to them.
I think in their mindset when they were developing the game, they literally wanted players to think it'd be a different spot every single time.
Oh yeah, no, certainly.
But I mean, I'll accept praise where I can get it.
But I'm not saying it's just for speedrunning purposes. I'm saying if you want to get that A rank, if you recognize the pattern, then that leads you to the other pieces faster, so you can get that A rank.
That's kind of an interesting question that comes up my head. Is that if you have to do things like that to A rank the game, is that a good thing because the game really makes you work for it and you have to do your due diligence to really get that to that spot in the game? Because there's actually a really good reward when you get all the emblems in the game. There's a secret level you unlock that's of a really, if I was a kid,
that great.
No, I'm just saying, if I was a kid and I got to that point, I would have been over the hills. I would have been
I mean,
this is amazing.
As a kid for sure, but now just looking at how many times this level has been reused, there's absolutely no point to this
in the grand scheme
whatsoever.
of things, after 20 more years after that, 20 more years after that game came out, yes, it's not that special anymore. But at the time when that game first came out, it was a huge deal, because they hadn't drawn that out in that way.
I still feel like I would have probably been a little bit disappointed with it, but that's just me.
Yeah, but
is it I mean,
I guess we can just
besides
say
the fact that it's an unlockable level, is it I'm not going
it's
back to
Green
this
Hill
game,
Zone. It's Green Hill Zone.
It's it's a bonus Sonic level. Where it's
the bonus Sonic level is the kind of level it's been in. Even I know Green Hill Zone. That's from the original games, right, on the Genesis.
Yeah,
it's a 3D
it's the very
version
first
of it.
Sonic level.
3D. Whoa.
It's the first.
Yeah.
You gotta think of course it's not a big deal now because we have things like Generations and Forces and Frontiers that keep doing the stupid thing again. But back then, that was the first ever rendition of Green Hill Zone 3D. The first ever.
Yeah.
And so it was a very special thing back then. And now because of all these modern games, it's like nothing anymore. But I will say though, I think the work to get to that point is a little too much.
It's a bit much. It's a bit much.
Like not only every single level has 5 missions to it that you need to finish. So the main mission, then there's like a collect this many rings mission, there's a find a missing child mission, there's finishes in a time limit mission.
And then on top of that, you have the missions that you have to do within the child world itself.
Yeah. They
What
I always go back and forth on whether like having this much stuff to like fully 100% the game is a good thing or not. I very rarely...
at the time, yes. At the time, I would say yes. Just because, again, back then, we're talking about... This is like completely different time in gaming, where you could... This takes hours to beat. You know, this is something to just give you something to go back and play while you're waiting for the next Sonic game to come out. No telling how many years or so that's going to be. Or, you know, this is a very different time in gaming. So I feel like, you know, as a kid or, you know, whenever you pick up this game for the first time, like, maybe it's something you strive to complete. I mean, now it doesn't seem like the greatest thing ever to go back and try and 100% complete everything. But back then, like, it was like, you know, it's a way to give it replayability.
I will say... because I the one thing, I don't know why I was kind of obsessed with this, but I always wanted to try and collect a lot of rings. Like, you know, I would always, like, if I saw, like, a circle of rings in the level, I'd always collect them all and everything like that. And I saw that, you know, on the end screen, that is one of the things, collecting a certain amount of rings. But I would get, if I actually went for that and, like, tried to do that, I would be so annoyed. Because, obviously, in Sonic, if you get hit one time, you lose all your rings. So it's like, you could be at the very end of the level and one shitty enemy comes and hits you and you lose all your rings. And yeah, you can collect some of them again, but you definitely can't get them all.
Know,
it's like...
you'd be surprised at how quickly it is to collect 100 rings.
Well, he's talking about getting like every single ring. Because that's what the end screen like teases you. Like, and technically, if you got every single ring, you would get an A rank. But... that's way harder than getting an actual A rank. So.
Well, yeah. I mean, even if you want to get all the rings in, let's say, City Escape, you can't because there are, like, correct me if I'm wrong, someone in the comments, but there's, like, I want to say 4 or 5 rings that are placed outside the level that you can't even reach.
Really?
Yeah. There's a couple of rings that they either just left in by mistake or whatnot, but like I mean that's not like I don't think you have to collect every ring in the level to get the A rank. I could be wrong,
tried, so
but
I wouldn't know.
Not my go-to.
Nah, it's like if I try to complete Sonic Adventure 2, I think my opinion of the game would degrade. just being totally upfront here.
Well.
It's just,
I mean, okay. Well,
like
I get what you mean.
You know, listen. Like, especially at this point in my life where I have a full-time job and I do other things besides play video games. My time to play video games is very limited. So
much like we talked about in our 2023 episode. Go check that
out.
Nice plug.
And so I think Adventure 2, when you try to play through it as just like the main campaign mode and like, you know, indulging some of its extras here and there, I think it's a very enjoyable game. You know, when I'm not trying to like stress about like getting an A ring on those treasure hunting levels especially, I started realizing like how enjoyable those levels actually could be if I just took my time to and just kind of like explored all the areas and like uncover like a bunch of the little things that hid and stuff. Like, I think it's a fun time personally. But to each its own.
Well, I was gonna say, so we talked about aspects, you know, our favorite and least favorites, and we talked about first impression, but I really want to know what you thought of the story, Zach.
Oh, we've been leading up to this, I guess.
You're both gonna hate me.
I mean, I'm like, you know,
Well, actually, I don't think Dave loves the story. I think I like it. So one of us is probably not going to hate you.
I'll be honest, I really zoned out with the story. Maybe it's because I played it a lot over a few weeks.
Yeah.
So it's like, it would be a while. So like, none of it really stuck. So it's like, and honestly, I did get to a point where I was skipping cutscenes. Don't hate me, but I started skipping cutscenes because I'm like, I just kind of want to play. Like, for me, like, I just like, it's for me, it's like with Mario games, I don't play Mario for the story. I just want to jump around and stomp on Goombas. Here, I just kind of want to go fast. So I didn't really. The first game, I paid attention a little bit more to the story, and I don't know why.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, I don't know. I guess I found it a little more enjoyable. I don't know, but I think that also had to do with me liking. I think this goes back to a conversation we had in the first episode, or in the first games episode, where with the hub world, I actually. I missed the hub world. Actually, it did like, I liked the world that it kind of felt like that game was in, and I get why a hub world doesn't make sense for this game, so like, I completely understand it's not a knock against the game, but like, I don't know, I just felt less invested, and that honestly is probably just to my genuine disinterest, not anything that the game did wrong, not anything that the game doesn't do well. It's just that it's like, it's just something I wasn't going into that I was really excited about, and I know that's gonna make a lot of people mad, and I apologize now.
Well,
but
see,
I don't know.
This leads into something that I wanted to mention, or I was going to mention at the beginning, but I decided to hold off on it until near the end because it kind of wraps into this. And I'm glad that you brought up that you missed the hub world. There is a significant reason why the entirety of Sonic Adventure 2 is set up like this compared to the first adventure. And you want to know that reason?
What is it?
Half of the first team that developed Adventure was split in half and moved to America. So there were like, I want to say, I think the number was 70 people made Sonic Adventure 2.
Jesus Christ. Oh my God.
They worked with half the manpower to make Adventure 2.
Okay.
Which is why a lot of Sonic Adventure 2 is very just straightforward and just very kind of, it feels much smaller in a sense. But yeah, that's why Adventure 2 is the way that it is, because they literally had their team split in half.
I do appreciate that, though. It makes you like, especially when, like, I don't know, like, especially, not to get too deep, I guess, but like, you hear a lot about games that have been crunched or had a lot of layoffs, and you hear about these games that still get out there, and it's like the teams are still very proud of them. And it's like, whenever I joke about not caring for a game, it's no knock against the developers ever, because that situation probably has got to suck. Like, to have your team basically divided by 4, you know, half and then half again, and then, you know, I'm guessing they were probably rushed, because I don't think the sequel came out.
This came out within 8 to 9 months after the first game. Oh my God.
Yeah, no, yeah. So I mean, I don't know if there's any crunch or any like bad practices going on. I don't know how Sega is with that, but like for what they put out, it is very solid.
Sega of Japan is is the type of company that has on record been known to be very, 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 very bad in work condition.
They have a controversy right now with not allowing the workers to unionize. I don't know much about it, but I've seen headlines.
Well, I've seen stories of people posting about, like, there was a point in time, I don't know how early or late into the 90s it was, but there was physical abuse at the company during development times.
Yikes!
Jeez.
Yeah, I mean, again, this could be, like, super early Sega of Japan, but, like, Sega of Japan as a whole, that's the reason why a lot of the Sonic games, I would say, had a lot of development issues, or just, especially 06, but, like, I mean, just communication has never been the best between Sega of America and Sega of Japan, just because Sega of Japan are more business, more corporate people, and Sega of America is more. I'm not saying that they're not as corporate or as business savvy as Japan is, but I don't think they take it as like super serious as Sega of Japan did. Because I mean, when Sonic first showed up on the scene, and we had the first Sega of America come over, and I forget what his name was, but I know he owned Pepsi previously before he owned Sega. He also came up with the slogan for Barbie. So shout outs to that guy. I think his name's like
guy
Tom.
I've
So
ever heard
random.
His name's like Tom something. But
probably
he
Tom
came
Holland.
over.
Tom Holland's
came
and
over
everything. He also has done everything. In the world.
So Sonic's prominently known for, you know, always trying to be like the cool, like, you know, upbeat, uptight kid back in the 90s, and when he pitched that to the CEO of Sega Japan at the time, when he came on board and was, you know, helping out with Sonic, the CEO of Sega of Japan at the time literally looked at his face and said, "You are not doing that." He thought that he was taking Sonic and making him into a joke because of how he wanted to advertise Sonic over here. So it is Sega of Japan and Sega of America do not have that best of a relationship as far as I'm aware.
Well, I mean, Sega will be Sega, I guess.
If you want to learn more about that, check out Console Wars. It's a great book and a great documentary.
Or request Dave to recite the entire book in the comment section.
Actually, you would be probably better off watching the documentary on Paramount Plus. I think it's on Paramount Plus.
I will say, though, I think that Adventure really, like, because of the way that it's done, you know, you have 6 different storylines, and some of the points of the plot do get repeated, you know, and stuff. So every time you get, like, that specific scene again with a different character, you have a little more background on what's going on. So it kind of feels like you're almost putting, like, a puzzle together in your head, which is kind of like the positive aspect of that structure, is that although you get some of the scenes over and over again and it's a little bit more repetitive, it kind of gives you a chance to be a little bit more invested in the narrative, because, you know, there's some things they just missed the first time around, then you'll be able to catch it like the second or third or fourth time they tell you it. And with Sonic Adventure 2, there's only 2 storylines, and they're very separate for the most part. I mean, they do have big events where they intersect a lot, but not nearly as much as you would in like the first adventure. So a lot of times the heroes are off doing their own thing, a lot of times the villains are off doing their own thing, and it's very fast-paced stories. So if you're not paying attention, then you will easily miss some things, because I think this storyline, Adventure 2, is just almost as dense as it is in the first game, but it has way less time to tell everything. So, you know, the dark storyline had to carry a lot of the burden of like really fleshing out the storyline, because like when you're playing the hero storyline, you pretty much don't have a clue what's going on the whole game. All you know is that Sonic is mysteriously framed by like this black hedgehog, and he has to clear his name, you know, and just stop whatever the hell Eggman's trying to do. So the hero storyline is very simple and is, in my opinion, not that interesting by itself.
When you say that storyline, just the way you said it, I got a question. Did this game come out before or after Super Mario Sunshine?
Before.
It was before.
Okay.
Yeah. What? Well, that's such a
No,
random
Super Mario
question.
Sunshine.
No, because
Well, Super Mario Sunshine. Main
it's very,
characters
very
framed for
similar.
something.
It's very similar.
Yeah,
Shadow
so-
Mario's in it.
Yeah,
that's
Shadow
right.
Mario.
Oh, I
with the
remember
darker Mario.
when I
It's framed for a crime.
when I got Sunshine.
The way you said it, I was like, huh.
When I got Sunshine as a kid, I was prone to hate that game as soon as I got it. But when I saw that Shadow Mario was there, I was like, this game's terrible. They're just ripping off Sonic. What the hell? And I actually like gave the game away to a friend after that. I was so mad about that. And
Savage.
well, that would be an
Savage.
interesting episode. That's an episode where I feel like I would get hate, because to this day I still don't really care for that game.
See, it's funny because I love Sunshine. So I feel like I'm the
like
odd one
I
out.
have to like And every time I try to play it, I stop like at some point because I just couldn't care less. Which I think I'll do a video on it one day. I'm thinking about doing a video about like Nintendo hot takes. And
Honestly, Riders, you'd be surprised. It actually isn't that much of a hot take. Not a lot of people like Sunshine. Like,
Yeah,
Okay,
a
that's not
lot of
surprising to
people
me then.
hate Sunshine, surprisingly.
to me, it's a
like
hot take
GameCube
because
lovers love Sunshine, but
to me, I thought it was a hot take because it's the 3D god Mario.
No,
like everything he does is
no,
perfect.
That
you
is
know?
the exact opposite of what the Mario fan base thinks of Sunshine.
Sunshine is like the black sheep of the family
It
for
is.
most people when it
It
comes to
is.
3D Marios. Like, it's the Sonic 06. Not as bad, but like it's the one
Yeah.
people are
Wow,
like, eh.
I would take that as my Cycle 6 any day over the actual Cycle 6. Just, at least that game isn't broken beyond belief. But back to Adventure 2. So, yeah, I think the hero storyline, I think the fact they started off with hero storyline, which makes sense because that's what pretty much 99% of people start off with. You're not really going to get like the full story experience with that one. It's a very fast paced, like go, go, go. It, actually, now that I think about it, it does not surprise me why you weren't that invested playing a hero storyline because it just, I'm thinking back on it, there's not a lot of memorable moments from the hero storyline. Maybe just one moment that sticks out in my head is Amy pulling Knuckles out of the pothole, but that's it.
Yeah, you just kind of get thrown into things too. So it's like, very much like, you're jumping out of this helicopter. You escape from prison. Oh, you bump into Shadow.
Yeah.
They seem to kind of know each other. It's like there's a whole. It's like, it's just, I don't know. It just is very, but you're thrown in. It's almost like you're being put in the middle of the story.
Yeah.
That's
in a
exactly what
way.
happened.
I mean, a lot of
Yeah.
it is definitely more so, again, due to translation. I think a lot of the English translation from the Japanese, it just doesn't really blend very well. The dialogue seems very out of place,
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
Yeah, there are some things that they say that just are kind of weird and clunky English wise. So I don't know. That's why as much as people love to hate on the show and stuff, I do appreciate Sonic X for giving us like a proper retelling of the story of this game, because I think it really does allow like some of the game's stories, like highlights, to really be shown off. I mean, there's some Sonic X things about the retelling that I don't like, but
Can we talk about the gun soldier that was facing PTSD after killing Maria?
no, I was talking about the voice actors.
No, I mean, that's an actual plot. That's a side plot in Sonic X that they focus on. There's like a whole arc about this gun soldier that is feeling remorse for being the one that shot Maria on the arc.
I have to rewatch that because that actually does not ring a bell to me at all.
It is like so out there, like anyone would
actually,
forget about it.
Just from the way that you describe it, it doesn't really seem like an out there thing. Like, who wouldn't have trauma over shooting like a child?
I mean, no, I'm not saying like that, but I mean like in the sense of like, in the sense of like, I guess being random, because it's just like, yeah, that would be a thing, but like, it seems more silly in the English dub. I think it makes a lot more sense in the Japanese version of Sonic, which I've heard is actually really good. I've heard the Japanese version of Sonic X is like 10 times better than the translated and dubbed one by 4Kids.
Yeah,
Usually how it is with.
would not be surprised that 4Kids.
There's a lot of serious moments in that, and Sonic says, I think, "damn" in front of Cream. So,
and
Damn.
yeah,
it would not surprise me that 4Kids probably just screwed it up and just made it sound really awkward. There's just certain things about that anime that's like really weird to me. But anyway, so I think like
play,
the
live,
dark
and learn during the
storyline-
final fight.
Okay, well, yeah, we gotta give points for that. Pay your respects to the iconic masters of before. But yeah, I would just say that like, I know you didn't get a lot out of the storyline, Zach, and I think one reason for that is because you gave yourself like a good amount of time to play through the game, but it's like the dark storyline is kind of where like a lot of the meat of the storyline really is at.
I would say that the dark storyline is probably the best place to start, even though it's like completely backwards from what people would do. It's just there's a lot. I feel like there's a lot more context of what's happening in the dark story
so much more
compared to what's going on in the hero story. It's almost as if dark story was crafted to be played first, and then you went and played the hero story, which is super weird to think
weird.
about.
Yeah.
But yeah,
That's dumb,
it just
'cause
makes more sense.
no one is gonna play the dark story first. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
It's just,
yeah.
I mean, actually, except like those kids that want to be cool and be like, oh, I want to play as that black hedgehog first, you know.
But I mean, also at the same time, I guess it's not so, so random to open it up on like, oh, Sonic was arrested. It kind of invests you. It's just like, why was he arrested? And then Shadow comes on the scene, and you're like, wait a sec.
But the issue is like you don't really get a resolution without a hero story, and most people are not going to go back and forth between the hero and dark story.
Yeah, no.
So you're gonna most people are just gonna go to the hero story straight up first, and then they'll go to the dark story. And
I think there's actually a YouTube video somewhere that kind of tries to place the cutscenes in chronological order. So if anyone wants to know the story of Sonic Adventure 2 in a semi-chronological order, I'm pretty sure there's a video out there on YouTube that does that.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll try to find that and try to get a grasp on the story. Because, I would love to have been invested, but yeah, I just didn't grab it. But maybe it is because of the fact that I started with the hero story, just kind of was like thrown off by all the kind of stuff going on.
And quite honestly, all the good stuff happens near the end of the dark story.
Yeah.
So like near to like the last like
Naturally.
Which sucks because I know you didn't make it that far, but there is a final story that unlocks after you've beaten both stories.
And that is like some of the most emotional moments you will ever find in a Sonic game. Like by far.
Yeah, so I'm skipping all the emotional bits, huh?
We're finally gonna butt heads a little bit.
Here we go.
See, all that would make
Okay,
all
no, we're gonna talk about this game in isolation first, and then we can kind of talk about everything else afterwards. Because I will say there are things that happen afterwards that unfortunately do kind of like damage the place of the storyline, which is terrible because it's not this game's fault. But of course, like Sonic is a hot mess, so everything about Sonic after this game just kind of just dwindles more and more into chaotic territory. But I will say like Sonic Adventure 2 storyline has had a very big impact on the franchise. Like it's definitely been like a storyline that pretty much singularly decided the vibe of like Sonic for the next like 5 or so years. I mean Sonic Heroes I feel like it's just the one anomaly where they were like, let's go back to the classic format just for a little bit. But then after that, Shadow the Hedgehog, Sonic 06, Sonic and the Secret Rings, Sonic Riders, all this like gritty, futuristic like Sonic stuff that's like a lot more serious and dark toned and has more focus on the storyline, but doesn't really know how to tell a good story, just so you all know. And that was all because of this game. It was all because of the story they told with Shadow the Hedgehog. And I guarantee you, the third Sonic movie is going to be a big hit because I think story of Shadow is just so good in and of itself. It's just a really...
And that's why, I mean, I've gone on record saying that I think if there were to ever be any other Sonic movies after this movie, Sonic Movie 3 is always going to be the most praised Sonic movie of all time. There's not going to be any beating it because of the fact that Shadow the Hedgehog is in it.
Yeah.
And the fact that they are adapting the story from Adventure 2 and taking elements from Shadow the Hedgehog, the video game, and placing it into a story. Because, like, I feel like Shadow the Hedgehog is such a popular character that, like, even if someone just outright absolutely despises Sonic the Hedgehog as a franchise, or just doesn't want to play any of the video games, the one character that I almost 100% am certain that people will love is Shadow the Hedgehog.
Big the Cat. Oh, yeah, Shadow. Yeah, sure.
I would love for it to be Big the Cat, yes. But Shadow the Hedgehog is just like... He's Shadow the Hedgehog. He's emo, he's edgy, he's everything that is the early 2000s pop and punk. That vibe. He has that vibe to him, and I think like a lot of people, even little kids, like when they're looking at Sonic, they're like, "Oh, he's cool, but Shadow's cooler because his hair frizzes up. He's got dark and edgy colors to him. He
Like,
doesn't talk much. He's very mean. I don't know. He's just got that vibe to him that, like, if you look at a picture between Sonic and Shadow, I feel like a lot of people would choose Shadow over Sonic.
listen,
For
Shadow's
being
like
a fake hedgehog.
Shadow's not my favorite character in the Sonic series. I think I just don't generally like am attracted to like those like really overly dark and zealous characters. It's just not my taste. I like SpongeBob SquarePants, so there you go. But I remember watching that cutscene where Shadow is introduced in the hero story for the first time. I was just like, they know exactly what they're doing here, setting up Shadow like this. This is gonna make every little like 10-year-old boy go crazy. They're like, yeah, that's who I want to be. I want to be that cool. But the thing about Shadow that I think has made him like a staying force in the Sonic franchise, because you think about who are like the main characters of Sonic. So there's obviously Sonic, Tails, Knuckles, and Amy. I feel like Amy's kind of been put in that group now with the more recent games. But Shadow is also one of those characters. And the thing about Shadow is that like on the surface he has a lot of like cool things about him that will get most people really excited for him. Both little boys and a lot of girls, I guess. But in Sonic Adventure 2's storyline, I really think Sonic Adventure 2 could have easily been called Shadow the Hedgehog, and it would have been fine, because the whole story is pretty much Shadow's story. It really is.
Yeah.
And
It all feeds back into his general story.
yeah.
So Sonic got overshadowed in this game?
Pretty much, actually.
pretty much,
I mean,
yeah.
I'm not even going to flinch at that. That's pretty much what happened. But Shadow, like from the very beginning to the very last moment of the game, to me is just such a powerful story within the Sonic franchise, and it's one I go back to a lot. I don't think the game was written the best. It just, like Dave said, there's probably some translation errors that kind of like factor into that and stuff. But I just think that the overall outline of the story is like so endearing and so appealing, and especially seeing like how it all kind of climaxes at the very end of the game. Like, I still remember, I am kind of a crier, so I do cry easily. But I even as a little kid, I did cry a little bit when Shao kind of like turned around and decided to help everyone save the world. It was just kind of like a really powerful character climactic moment for me. And it, in a lot of ways, the storyline is very similar to the first adventure. Kind of follows like this very like misunderstood character who's wreaking havoc on the world and stuff, but only because he's been treated really badly like in the past. But in the end, he kind of like has some revelations, and then they decide to like change their ways. Like Chaos, Super Sonic defeats him, and then all of his darkness is destroyed, and now Chaos just wants to take care of like the child and stuff. And with Shadow, he kind of has a bit of a different way of getting there, but you kind of get like a similar message, which, hearing about the fact that the staff was like half of Sonic Adventure actually makes a lot of sense why the storyline is very similar in that sense. But I think they told it in a different way that I thought was really effective. And I don't know, I really enjoyed it personally. What about you, Dave?
It's a good story. It's a good story. It sucks that the aftermath is just kind of pointless.
Well, before we get to that, I will say I think, and I don't know, maybe they are talked about a lot, but I feel like Shadow and Rouge's relationship in this game in particular was really well done. Especially like near the end, of course, everything that Zach missed, but near the end when Rouge kind of confronts Shadow about his intentions and who he really is very interesting and a nice moment between them. And while it does come off as a little antagonistic, I think it kind of also establishes like this weird like bond between them. It's like Rouge is the person that Shao can go to for like the honest truth, and even though Rouge is definitely not that person. Rouge would definitely be the one that would like lie to you to get what she wants. But
oh yeah. I mean, she's not gonna, if she's gonna use Shadow, she's not gonna tell him that she's using him for something.
But I mean, to Rouge's credit though, she has always been a good like friend to Shadow. I don't know. I think Rouge tries to put off this like feel like Rouge is someone we haven't really talked about. Like Xiao again, overshadowed everything in the game. But Rouge also is like a really popular character within the franchise, and I feel like she's just a fun person in the game in general. I think her and Knuckles' like relationship was, I was kind of grossed out by it when I was a kid. I was like,
I mean, they clearly were trying to do something with that relationship there.
yeah. But I think it's funny now. You know, the way that they address it nowadays is funny. But I thought that was kind of one of the most awkward moments of that game. Yeah, seemed to kind of get face to face in that final scene.
I will say, I mean, speaking of relationships and whatnot, I do like, I mean, I feel like this was the last time we saw Eggman's personality, you know, sort of in this manner. His personality in the adventure games is drastically different compared to the future of Sonic after this. He's just so much more, I guess, darker. He's so much more threatening. And I mean, I don't know. There's just something about him in Adventure 1 and Adventure 2 that just really makes him seem like he's more of a more serious and more sinister character. And I do miss that Eggman a lot. I mean, we do have glimpses of it here and there in some modern titles. And I think Frontiers kind of tries to lean him more towards it, even though it's not really.
Well, he was never the
know.
main villain from the start, so Frontiers just couldn't do that.
Well, I know, but I mean, like how they have it set up for after Frontiers, he most certainly can be directed towards.
Yeah, I guess so.
That, but I don't know. I miss that kind of like, I guess, more threatening threat that he was. Like, I mean, I'll be honest. It's funny for sure, but like seeing him hold Amy at gunpoint and being like, "Give the emerald to me now," you know, it's just like,
yeah,
okay, all right, hold on. He means business.
But him actually like pulling the trigger and like basically murdering Sonic in that moment, like that's something that Eggman has never done up to that point.
No, for
that's
sure.
Something that
No,
he
for
has
sure.
not done since then.
I mean, he's all about bluffs. I mean,
but that wasn't a bluff. That was
no. What I mean is, he's always been bluffing in a way. You know, It's just like, for example, when he was threatening, you know, to show that he was very serious, even though this is a meme within itself with the recent fan dub a couple of years back. But it'll always be one of my favorite scenes from the game. But when he's like declaring that the Eggman Empire in front of the entire world, and he shows that the Space Colony Arc cannon, like he shows the destruction that the cannon can do, and I'm just sitting there like, he just blew up the moon. That was a warning shot. Like, people better take him serious now.
Yeah,
it's such a cool scene, such a cool build up. Like, there's so much emotion within that scene alone. Like, oh my god, he's not playing.
Like seeing people's like scared expressions, like in the cutscenes.
Yeah, and I mean,
really, it's very
2000s.
I will say.
Yeah, it's very 2000s for sure.
But you can see like the scared faces.
Seeing the impact, seeing the impact and the fear that he put into people, like he doesn't really do that now in modern games. I mean, sure, people are scared of him, but like he's not as threatening, I would say, as he was.
And seeing the moon like get blown up like that is just such an iconic image in the Sonic franchise. It's so iconic that when you show off the future games with a full moon, people are always like, "When did they fix the moon? When did that get fixed?"
In Sonic X. That's explained in Sonic X.
Sonic X is not canon to the games, Dave.
It's not, but they explain it in Sonic X. Now, the explanation that Izuka has given is that the moon just turned.
I forgot about that. That's funny.
We're just seeing it from a different angle. It just turned.
That is funny.
It's okay.
Sonic.
It's okay.
Well, Sonic Adventure 2. Well, Dave, I guess I'll let you kind of go on your like other half of your story opinion. So go ahead.
Yes. Okay. Here we go. All right. So since Zach didn't get to beat the game, let me just go ahead and spoil it. So when you get to the final story, it is really heart touching. It is very, very, very interesting. So the way they do it is they let you play as every single character that you've played throughout the entire game. You get to go through a series of levels as Sonic, Tails, Knuckles, Rouge, Eggman, just all of them, Shadow included. And basically what they're doing is they're working together, because what happens when Eggman puts all the Chaos Emeralds into the Space Colony Arc to shoot the laser, it malfunctions, but it's because it was basically booby-trapped to malfunction by Eggman's grandfather, Gerald Robotnik. And like when they do the whole like sequence and whatnot, a broadcast is shot to Earth, and then the broadcast is running on the Space Colony Arc, and it's Gerald Robotnik. It's a like footage of him before his execution by the GUN army and whatnot, stating that it is very dark. It gets very, very dark.
I can't. A child being shot dead by a gunman.
Yeah.
Like, come on.
It's his execution. Basically, he's just rambling. He's gone into. You can see that he's gone into more of a delusional state, basically, just simply because they killed Maria, which was his niece, and the whole reason, or was it his granddaughter? Was Maria?
Niece. I think it was his
niece. Niece. The whole reason Shadow was designed in the first place, or an ultimate life form in general, was to cure her of this rare disease that she had, which is basically just space AIDS. It's really weird. And so Shadow's purpose was to be developed to create a way to cure her so she could go back to Earth and live a normal life. And then what happens, further explained in Shadow the Hedgehog, the video game, because that video game's just specifically crafted to fill in plot holes throughout Adventure and Heroes, is the government finds out that Gerald worked with the leader of the big enemy, the Black Arms. He worked with Black Doom to create Shadow using a sample of his blood. And because GUN saw this, they thought that he was working with the enemy, so they shut down Project Shadow. They went to the Ark, and Maria basically just like shoved Shadow into an escape pod, pressed the button, and then that's when the gun soldier walks in and shoots her. That's what happens. Because the gun soldier told her not to do it, but she did it because she wanted Shadow to get out of there. So Gerald Robotnik rigs the Space Colony Arc to basically plummet into the Earth if anyone were to ever activate the Eclipse cannon, because Maria was killed. He says, if in the quote or whatnot, he's just like, if I can't have Maria, then no one can have life, basically, whatnot. And so he's set after death, he set the Space Colony Arc onto a collision course to just obliterate the Earth. And so now everyone,
just like the delivery of Joe Robotnik in Adventure 2 was so like creepy when I was a kid. All you ungrateful humans who took everything away from me will feel nothing but loss and despair. It was just like a man that is
just basically
end.
Dark.
Yeah, no,
you missed all the dark stuff in this game.
It gets dark. It gets really dark. And so basically everyone on the Ark, Eggman has to help out, because if he doesn't, he's gonna die with everyone on the Ark. So might as well just help everyone. So it gets to the point where they get to
Eggman is like that mad scientist. He's like admires like Gerald's like mind, even though it's basically gonna kill him. That's how
he's
twisted
just
Eggman
like,
is
wow,
in this game.
my grandfather was just as insane as I am. Basically. So everyone works together, and then the weirdest fucking part of the entire game comes down to when they get to a chamber that is a recreation of the Master Emerald Shrine on the Space Colony Arc, and they activate the Master Emerald and the Chaos Emeralds, and then boom, giant fucking dinosaur lizard monster thing just forms right in front of them and is known as the prototype to the ultimate life form, which is Bio Lizard.
How you go from a lizard like that huge to Shadow the Hedgehog is something that needs to be explained.
I think it's explained. I think it's explained because it's explained in some of I think some of Sonic X, or it's explained somewhere. But Gerald is known to have studied the echidna markings and whatnot, and I'm assuming he just came across the mural with Supersonic on it and was like, okay, I need that. And there's a picture of the prototype to the ultimate life form there, if you would like to see. So this is the thing,
it's like how you go from this gigantic dinosaur lizard to Shadow the Hedgehog is something I have to something I just want to see attempted to explain, but anyway.
Yeah. So before this even happens, Shadow's contemplating. He doesn't know whether or not he wants to help everyone or just let everyone die, because he personally doesn't care. It's what Gerald wants, so be it. And then so Maria, Amy comes around and she's like, Shadow, you've got to help them. And it's just like, he's like, but why should I do it? Why should I help everyone? They killed Gerald, they killed Maria, this is what they deserve. And Amy's like, but that's not, she's basically telling him that's not what Maria had asked you to do before she died. So now he's seeing Maria through Amy, and that changes his heart a little bit, because he's like, wait a second, you're kind of right. This isn't what Maria wanted of me to do. This isn't right. So he goes and helps them take down BioLizard, and then for whatever reason, the creature here performs chaos control somehow, and
he's a prototype of Shadow the Hedgehog.
Literally fuses itself into the Space Colony Arc. So now the Space Colony Arc is plummeting towards Earth at an even rapid speed than it was before. And so now Sonic and Shadow do this really cool Dragon Ball thing where they both go in super, and then they go out into space and they're fighting the lizard, and then it gets to a point where they just can't hold the Space Colony Arc back enough to stop the Earth from being imploded by this thing. So what happens is Shadow's like, Sonic, we got to do a chaos control, but I'm gonna have to use it to the extent of my power. So he basically takes off his exhibitor rings, and they chaos control or teleport the Space Colony Arc back to where it was. And because Shadow exhausted all of his power from his exhibitor rings, he basically sacrifices himself and falls down to the earth with his last last words saying, "This is what you wanted, right, Maria?" And that's it. And so Sonic gets back onto the Ark, and everyone's sitting there in the main control room awaiting both Sonic and Shadow to get back safely. And Sonic comes to the elevator, and everybody's shocked and looks at him, and then I think it's Rouge that looks to him or something like that. Rouge looks to him, and then Sonic bows his head down and just starts walking, and she gets the hint that Shadow's not coming back. And they're just all talking. They're all having a good, friendly time. Eggman's sitting there, talking to Tails, being buddy buddies. Oh yeah, my grandfather was really great, and you just they're all having a friendly moment. And then at the end of it, they're all walking out, and then before Sonic leaves the room, he has a photo of I think it's Shadow and Maria or something like that, and he just turns back and he says, "Sayonara, Shadow the Hedgehog," and he tosses the image, and then it fades out, and then the credits roll.
Oh my god, I'm such a hot mess.
Aww.
This is literally It's literally
It's
such a beautiful
just
story.
it's a huge build up to Shadow just basically accepting that, you know, in order to save everyone, he just has to sacrifice himself. And
Yeah.
then they completely ruin it and made Sonic Heroes.
Yeah. I mean, that's why I think you should just. I really think the game should just be appreciated like in isolation of itself because at the time they crafted like a great narrative for this game.
Oh, for
And
sure, for sure.
I'm like, I think the game definitely warranted like another game to just kind of like flesh out plot points. So I thought that Shadow the Hedgehog as a concept was actually like a really cool idea because it's like, oh, you can actually like maybe find out more about like what Shadow's life was like when he was created. Like what conversations did he have with Maria? Did Shadow talk to Joe Robotnik? What did they talk about? And things like that. But then, I guess we'll likely get into this in a future episode. But then all the stuff about Black Doom like really starts to muddle up the image, and it's like Sega basically just couldn't help themselves. They had to milk it, so they realized they had a hit on their hands. First of all, Sonic Adventure 2 was kind of destined to fail because it was made on a dying console. So I think the year that it came out on Dreamcast, isn't that the year that Dreamcast was discontinued?
Yep, it was 2001. The American
Yeah.
release was in 2001, right
So
in November of 2001. So a month or two later, the Dreamcast was announced as, defunct. They were done with it.
So Sonic Adventure 2 was really just left to die. But they ported Adventure 2 like intelligently to the GameCube afterwards, and it ended up becoming one of the strongest sellers of the GameCube. So I really think that that's where most of its like popularity came from, was from its GameCube port. So I mean, we gotta give props to Nintendo for that, I mean, yeah, it was it served as one of the more popular GameCube titles, and
Actually, it's going back to the Heroes thing. It's really funny how Shadow was brought back into the games, because when they were planning out Heroes and they were doing concept art, I remember specifically seeing a comment from someone, the character designer of Shadow the Hedgehog himself, when they presented him with the list of characters and they listed Shadow, he specifically made a comment under the concept of the game questioning, why is he back? Even the concept creator was just like, are you sure this is a good idea? We just killed him off.
Yeah. So that's definitely like a very popular topic in the Sonic
It is. But I mean, I don't know. Look, if you enjoy Sonic Adventure 2 and you love Shadow the Hedgehog, go for it. More power to you. I respect Shadow the Hedgehog, but I honestly feel like just because of his popularity and obviously, having him be a continuing character in the series is going to make sales and whatnot. I don't know. Me personally, I feel like he should have just sacrificed and never came back. It would have made his character so much more, in my opinion, more memorable, and I feel more respected in a way.
I will say that while I don't like the way that they brought him back, I am glad that Shadow's still in the franchise. I just think that he's like such a interesting character, even though like design wise, he is distinct from Sonic, but I'm like, we don't really need like more hedgehogs in the Sonic cast, to be honest.
No, not really.
I would love to see like
we've exhausted that at this point, I feel.
Yeah. But I feel like if that was like Shadow's only game, I feel like that would have been such a shame, because Shao is clearly such an interesting character, and there's definitely a lot of stuff that like you could have explored with Shadow. Maybe they could have done like a prequel or something, or I don't know, just something that.
I mean, that's why
messed.
that's why the Shadow the Hedgehog video game exists. It's there to serve the purpose of trying to fill in the plot holes.
I can understand from like a business standpoint why they brought Shadow back.
Yeah, 100%. Obviously, he's gonna sell the games. People really like Shadow, so the best response to doing that is putting him back in. But it's so hilarious because in Heroes, when he shows up, even though he's known to have died, Tails is like, "Shadow, is that you?" And then Sonic's like, he makes a joke. He's like, it's really hard to kill you or something. It's just like, it's something like that.
I guess in their defense, it's basically implied that Shadow died in Adventure 2.
I mean, yes,
but we don't actually see him like die.
No, it is implied because I mean that's the whole point of Shadow the Hedgehog when Eggman's like, "Oh, I found you." Well, yeah, but you shouldn't have to wait 15 minutes in a final boss to be told, "Oh, by the way, I found you and I restored you back to full health."
Oh, Dave, I feel bad for Zach. This is literally flying over his head.
You can watch back the episode, Zach. Don't worry.
But I mean that's something that we can talk more about in the future. But yeah. I will. Your point is valid. I would say that like future games have definitely sort of ruined Shadow's story. But I think Adventure 2 in isolation is such a well done game in terms of its narrative. And I think in gameplay wise, maybe you don't believe it's a step up from Adventure, but it's definitely like still a nice consistent step from Adventure nonetheless. It's got like a lot of things about the gameplay wise that are still really good, and I think it really did a lot to usher Sonic into like this next phase in his career, and had maybe a little bit too much say in like the games that came afterwards. But I mean, that's for another day. Zach, any final thoughts on Adventure 2?
No, I guess the way I'll end this off is saying I respect what Adventure 2 did. I appreciate, it was fun in its own way, even if I didn't completely beat it. I still will say, I was debating. I was like, I don't know which adventure game I preferred. Like, I was like, I mean, because they're both kind of different. Like, they're similar but different. So it's like, so it is hard to compare. But I do think, like, in 10 years' time, if I look back and be like, all right, maybe I'll explore into the Sonic Adventure games again. Which one do I want to play? I think I'd probably still go for the first one.
Mm-hmm.
But the second game did have a lot of strengths. I felt like Sonic felt better to control, and the Tails sections I thought were better than and I think Tails actually I really liked in the original game as well, in the first game. And just the treasure hunting, we'll just never touch that again, please. Second, don't. But other than that, yeah, it was an okay game.
I mean, I don't know how much you agree with this, but I honestly think treasure hunting should be segregated into its own like spin-off title. I think that like I don't think
Knuckles
like this
treasure hunting.
I don't think the stage to stage format really works for that gameplay style. I think you should have a more open world-ish game with that gameplay, because I think that Knuckles controls so fun like in both of these games, and I would just love to like not be limited to like a stage to stage layout, like something more like the Adventure Fields in Adventure, but like bigger. Make it bigger, make it like a proper open world game. That makes more sense as like a 3D platformer open world kind of game than Sonic does, honestly. So
yeah, that is one thing I did really like about the first game more, is that because of the fact that each character does play differently, I like the fact that if I'm playing Sonic's gameplay, I still get the full story in Sonic's story. Obviously, there are bits and pieces that I missed from the other character stories, but like I still get the broad sense of the story. In this game, because I didn't like the treasure hunting segments, I did have to sit through those to get the story.
Yeah.
So I guess that is one thing I would say. But like, because if Knuckles had like his own thing, kind of like how Big the Cat had his freaking fishing jamboree, like as his own separate thing. I guess I didn't mind it as much because of the fact that I didn't have to do it. I could just kind of leave it over there, and I still feel like I didn't miss out on the story.
Right.
So yeah.
Well, I would just say here and state that like Adventure 2 is amazing. Like I know it has a lot of flaws, and I am not like a blind nostalgic fan that would just be like, you're wrong, you're just bad at games. That's why you don't like Adventure 2. You're just not a good gamer or things like that. I understand that like Adventure 2 is not for everyone. Like there's definitely aspects of it. If I could go back and like be in like the designer like decisions room, like there's definitely some things that would have changed. Like, maybe we don't need 10 treasure hunting levels. Maybe we could just have like 2 or 3, you know. And maybe we could have a little bit more of Sonic and Shadow, you know. Shadow only had 4 levels.
True.
I feel like Shadow deserved more levels. And
Yeah.
I feel like maybe we should try to cue the hero side more into the storyline. But there's just so many things like in the foundation of this game that are just so great. Like the storyline is obviously the thing that I've been like crazy about, and I just think that it's something that I wish was executed a little bit better, because I think just the pure structure of it here, the fact that the storyline has had the enduring impact that it has on the franchise, despite like its flaws, just kind of says a lot. But also I think that like I really do think that the Sonic and Shadow gameplay is more defined here compared to the first game. So I feel like while it is like more like focused and a little bit more linear, I feel like it just does it better. The levels are just like there's less like problems you could run into, you know, playing these levels compared to the first one. And I feel like the first one, you know, had a lot of fun levels, but also had some levels that I didn't think were that great either. Like I don't think Lost World in the first game, for instance, really feels like a Sonic level at all. But like every level in Adventure 2 that's Sonic and Shadow feels like a Sonic and Shadow level. So that's just kind of, I just feel like Adventure 2 is more consistent in that aspect. But that's my overall stance. I still think both games are great. And we didn't even touch upon the Chow Garden, which like, come on, the Chow Garden in this game.
I didn't engage
I
in
know,
the Chow Garden.
The Chow Garden in this game is actually... The Chow Garden in this game is actually a lot more advanced than the first one. You know, you still have the Chow races, but I feel like there's a lot more you can do with them. You can you play Chow Karate, which wasn't even in the first one.
Yeah.
You can take your child to kindergarten. You can have them learn to like draw and play music and all this kind of stuff.
You can have them all learn different instruments, and they can even start their own band. It's so cute.
It's wild. It's wild. On top of that, you can like evolve them to make them like actual character specific Chow. Like you can have a Sonic Chow, a Shadow Chow. You can get a Tails Chow, but that's kind of intertwined with another thing that you have to do on the GameCube with another one of Sonic Team's titles, which was Phantasy Star Online. You do like a side quest, and because you have that memory card, it's really weird, but like it's a nice little crossover thing that you can do.
Yeah, I mean, life simulation games, man. They're literally like the black holes of the industry. So it's just Sega was ahead of their time. Yeah.
They were the first to do DLC. I mean, they were way ahead of their time with this console. The Dreamcast literally was the blueprint for what we have today. In a sense.
And I will also add, this is something I mentioned a little bit earlier, but I do want to also preface this because I don't also want to sound like just a mega hater. Like, I also, like, since I'm not a big Sonic fan, and it's just not my cup of tea in that way, a lot of my opinions are also that way because of that. It has nothing to do with the quality of the game as well. Like, I feel like it is also because it's not my cup of tea.
I will say, I actually find it very interesting that you have this opinion about Adventure 2, because most non-Sonic fans that I've met, they love Adventure 2.
Oh,
they absolutely love it. They absolutely. So when you said that you didn't like it as much, I was just like, well, now that's interesting.
Well, I think given like Zach's like the kind of games that he seems to likes to play, I think it makes more sense.
I mean, yeah, I guess, but I mean, even so, like people that are like heavily into like Nintendo titles and whatnot, if you ask them about a Sonic game that they've ever played, 9 out of 10 chances it's going to be Sonic Adventure 2.
Well, that's because I think Adventure 2 just has a lot of impact. Like Shadow the Hedgehog is
for sure.
It's just like,
for sure.
Even though Adventure is famous because it's the first one, it's the first 3D Sonic game. But Adventure 2 is famous because of a bunch of qualities it has. You know, it's like City Escape. You know, like that's an iconic level in and of itself. And Shadow the Hedgehog's debut, and it also was a game that really, like chose the direction of Sonic for the next 5 years or so. So it's a game that just has had such long impact on the Sonic series, whether for good or bad. And I mean, you gotta give it. It's a supermodel in the Sonic franchise. It is.
Yeah.
Is it the Taylor Swift of Sonic games?
Well, it's a little too controversial, I think, for that. Maybe more Lady Gaga.
Lady Gaga. Okay.
There
I'll
you
give
go.
that.
That's a good, I guess.
You know, it tries a lot
Parallel.
of like weird things.
It does. It does.
But I mean,
That's about right then. Lady Gaga. Yeah, that makes
I
sense.
don't know. Maybe not that outrageous. Ooh, that'd be a fun question. Like, what pop star fits each Sonic game? That'd be good. Dave, any final thoughts on Adventure 2?
No, I've said all I needed to say.
Yeah. I
It's a
respect
decent
that
game.
you I respect that you enjoy Adventure 1 more. But I also respect that you are wrong.
It's okay to be wrong sometimes. It's okay to be wrong.
It is
sometimes.
okay to be
You can't
wrong,
be right
Zach.
all the time.
It's, Dave's been wrong his whole life, so it's fine.
Well,
This is true.
oh my God, I'm scared to get, like, when we get to Luigi's Mansion, that's where I'm, like, because now, like, I feel like it's going to be the same kind of thing, where it's like, I like the first game more, and I feel like you're going to be like, oh no, the second game's better. So
I
I'll be
love-
interested in the
If
conversation
you
we
say
get
that
there,
you
too.
like Luigi's Mansion 2 more than Luigi's Mansion 1, we're going to have a problem.
See, I actually don't even. I've never seen any footage of Luigi's Mansion 2. Like, maybe it's besides that, like, trailer in the direct of the remake. But I don't even remember what that looks like. So I'm like, I've at least seen Luigi's Mansion. Like, I've seen it in videos. But I have absolutely no clue what Luigi's Mansion 2 looks like. So that'll be interesting when we get to that point. But anyway.
Well, for you watchers and listeners, stay tuned. That's coming up in the next few months.
Yeah. And if you all like this discussion, let us know what other Sonic things you'd like to see in the future.
Please be gentle with me. I'm not getting Sonic CD or Sonic R or Sonic
You just need to get
Mean
Jen's collection
Bean
for that.
Machine or
Well, Mean Bean Machine is just Puyo Puyo, so.
Oh, that game's iconic though. Mean Bean Machine.
or Sonic
Yeah.
Spinball. Actually, I have Sonic Spinball. Funny
Don't
enough.
play that. That's horrible.
All right, y'all. Thank you so much, and I guess we'll catch you next time. And wow, I just realized how long we were recording. Oh, that's just fantastic.
Yep.
All right.
All right. Bye.
Bye, everyone.